Hello, everyone. Kimberly, you're exactly right. It is me, Katie Gideon. I will be your on-camera facilitator for this week 4, week 5 of October weekly setups, which is wild. I feel like October is the month that hasn't quite ended, and we still have like a full week of it. But I am excited to be here. I am coming off of a vacation, so maybe a little bit rusty, so bear with me. But when in doubt, I do have some help in the chat that you will see. My co-facilitator, Jen, is there. We are the previous Team Texas, and will forever be Team Texas. Even though I did relocate a couple years ago, we were actually talking about Houston and all the shenanigans down there. But we are excited that you're here. I love seeing all of our returning socialers in the chat. Welcome. It is always great to see each and every one of you at these events. You guys are the best accountability buddies that we have. But I'm also seeing maybe some newer folks. So if you want to participate in the chat, you can participate in as much or as little as you want. Just double check that it is set to everyone. That goes to everyone in the chat. If it does default, it defaults to hosts and panelists, which comes to just myself and Jen. And we're always happy to answer those questions, but we just assume that you want to talk to everybody else. And if you scroll back up in the chat, there are a couple other things. The big one is that our other facilitator, Bailey, is hosting an in-person event in Tennessee or the surrounding areas near Hendersonville. There's a form that you can sign up for. It sounds like we're going to have quite a few people there. If you want to see someone live and in person, that could be something really fun. Again, that's going to be November 1st. And also, just to highlight, it is that time of year again where we do our annual survey, and that's anything and everything to deal with Silk and Sonder, from the products to the events to the theming, all of those things. We read all of the feedback, we appreciate all of it, and that is certainly how we adjust some of our features, the schedules, all of those things. So this is your opportunity to sound off in that regard. Don't worry, we will also share all of this information at the end if you miss out. But we just wanted to highlight all of those things. And also, as always, be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions. Though, as I like to say, we like to talk about all the fun products that we have here at Silk and Sonder, as well as all of the amazing recommendations that all of you have, from different journaling accessories to apps to anything else that we know could be helpful on our various self-care journeys. So we like to share those, but do keep that in mind, that, that not to detract from why we're here, which is to set up our pages. And then, as always, Jen and I have some information, but we will most likely redirect your questions to customer care, which is hello@silkandsonder.com. We can also be helpful just in a sense of, if you have a concern that you don't think has been addressed, let us know. We can fly it to headquarters, see what they can do. And as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. But you're responsible for your own emotions, well-beings, and decisions, which means we are so excited that you've come exactly as you are. We have a really fun, I think, bonus map question, but I think it also could be one of those that is a little bit triggering. I know the theme has been a little bit hit or miss with some people, and that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that you're setting up and protecting yourself with some of those mental barriers or boundaries. You don't have to talk about anything you don't want to. You don't have to participate in anything that you don't want to. You can always go to the color page and knock that out, because there is no right or wrong way to participate in these socials, just as there is no right or wrong way to set up your journal. We are just glad that you're here taking this time to spend with you and your self-care journey with, again, this amazing group of amazing humans that provide the best cheerleading, the best support, and just making us all feel a little less alone. And so, wrapping up with resilience. And like I said, this one I find tricky because I don't know how to spin it in kind of a really optimistic view, other than I like the idea of, the resilience, the courage, is the courage to fall down and stand up again and again and again. But then I get stuck in the again and again and again, where you're like, why do I keep ending up on my face? I feel like it becomes one of those. So while I feel like there's an optimism to the, you fall down six times, get up for seven. Kind of in that vein, it's just like, why do I have to keep falling down? Do I get a break for some of the falling down? Which was kind of the thought that I had earlier this month. And I think it also kind of goes hand in hand with the one that I found that also is a little bit of a Halloween theme, which is the be gentle with the ghosts of your past. Every version of you deserved to be loved. And I think that's another one of those is I do have a hard time of like reminiscing when it comes to the resilient times because I dwell on some of those reasons of like why I had to be resilient. Was it a mistake? Was it, put in conditions that I wasn't prepared for at the time? Was it testing me for those certain things? And so it was one of those, whereas I'm more reactive instead of proactive. So I kind of want to analyze it from that very critical lessons learned phase, when at the same time I should be embracing the fact that, again, that I did get up. We don't need to acknowledge, I mean, we can acknowledge the fact that we fell down and that, or maybe things just didn't go as well as they should have. But it was the fact that, again, I think it becomes that subtle transition of can we now reframe some of those situations where we had to be resilient in more of a thrive instead of survive mentality? And that's really certainly something that I've kind of worked with when it comes with this particular theme, because I just think it's been great. And if you have seen the November theme, I'm not going to spoil it, but I think it's another one of those that is going to be a bit tricky, but I think a little bit more in the theme of embracing something and maybe overall being a little bit more gentle with some of the not so shining parts of our past. Um, so we have the resilience mind map, which is going to be a bonus map question. So we'll do that, and then we'll do our rosebud thorn, and then move into those weekly pages. So when we talk about the bonus mind map, this is one of those that it can be done anywhere in your journal, because again, we like to keep the mind maps focused on the four, but this is our bonus mind map question, and I love the nod to the theme. If even though I feel a little bit like we're doing it a little bit early, but then I realized that like next week is very much taken over by November. But the bonus mind map question, so again, find a blank page in your journal or a blank section or even a blank piece of paper. I had to go to a completely different piece of paper because this one is one of those that you can just go a bunch of different ways. So what is one mask you've had to wear to feel strong, and what part of your true self does it protect? And so one of the reflection options is to reflect on a time you had to hide your fears or struggles to push forward. What was the situation? What mask did you wear? And what part of you, your vulnerability, your hope, your sadness, was it guarding? Or you can do this other prompt, which is take a few minutes to write about the feeling behind the mask. How did you feel when you were wearing it? What did you wish you could have shown? What would it take for you to feel safe enough to take off that mask and be seen for who you truly are, challenges and all? So these are the questions taken directly from the previous slide, as well as other things that I kind of came up with. And the ones that I kind of looked at was, does this happen on a regular basis, or has it only happened in very specific situations? Because this is more the section that I leaned into, because I absolutely wear a mask in a professional setting. I was in the military for 10 years, and I was able to still like add an element of my personality. So I considered it me decorating my mask with a little bit of flair. But for the most part, it was still very much, my friends and family who didn't know me in a work setting could not believe some of the antics or some of the things that I was put in those professional settings, and kind of vice versa. So I feel like that was definitely one of those, like it became common, and there was almost like a safety feature to it in that it was necessary because I was part of a very, very large organization, and the anonymity was always nice and appreciative. But then I also kind of dug a little bit deeper with some of these other questions with, do you wear the mask proactively or put it on in response to a situation? I feel like that's one of those. Oh, don't worry. I have the previous weeks from last month that I'll include on the slide. We won't go into too much detail, but these are the resilience questions. So I'll go back to that slide once I do this. So don't worry, you'll get to see them. And so the idea of putting on a mask proactively. You know, I always think in terms of like, are you kind of an introvert when put into new situations, meeting new people? Do you come with a mask in hand? Or is it, you know, something that gets triggered because you're in a new situation or because the spotlight is on you or because you've been put in this type of scenario? Same thing with the simple things of, you know, I think of when you're like called on in school or called on in work and you may not be as prepared as you want to be. Do we put on that type of mask idea? And then I also dove a little bit deeper into the does your mask have multiple layers depending on who you're interacting with at the time. And there was an exercise that I saw that you could have done where you have like an inner mask and then an external mask. And sometimes it's the perception versus reality. So do people see the same thing that you have put on your mask, so to speak? Or do you see it kind of in a very different way? And then at the same time, I liked this idea, has your mask fallen and how did you handle it? Because did just get back on vacation. It was a large group tour and our tour guides are amazing and they were wonderful. But there were just those instances when someone would ask the same thing for like the 15th time, even though it was already in the chat, already of those things. And you would just see the subtle fall of the mask where, you know, you'd get some explicitives as you're standing right there. And then you see in the chat that they've actually responded with that. And then like the smiley face emoji. And you're like, oh dear. So I found that kind of an interesting nod as well, where it's like you thought you were so good, but then, as we say, you know, your tone and what you say is so great, but you can't hide your facial responses. So I again thought this was a really interesting concept when it deals with the theme of resilience, which is kind of what we can do there, as we're being close to Halloween. But like I said, if you missed any of the previous week's mind maps, these will be here. I'll go back and forth to them. But we're really focusing on this concept of masks that we wear, kind of why we do it, how we do it, and all of the kind of different things there. So I'm going to give you some time to work on this, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Definitely, as Jen pointed out, this is certainly somewhat of a deeper prompt, but I appreciated the opened exploration of kind of the different ways wearing masks can occur, as well as seeing people kind of look at when the mask fell or how you use it in different manners. And so I think, again, this is one of those that you could go down so many different ways, look at so many different themes, so many different relationships, even just the very, very different components that make up your life. Sierra, I agree. They have been getting a little bit more challenging, but I also feel like it lends to the themes because we've had some really great themes that have certainly allowed us the freedom and flexibility to dive a little bit deeper. But this is another one of those that maybe you just kind of add this to your things that you want to reflect on as you go through the week, because that's what we love about the mind maps and those type of questions, is that you do have the whole week to kind of look at these and revisit these. It just, like I said, it seemed to me that it really spoke with resilience because I feel like sometimes a mask is certainly chosen for that regard. But I appreciated someone pointing out that could be a little bit claustrophobic and leading to all those Sierra, we'll see what we can do. You don't want me writing them, trust me. But I feel like this was again a great concept one to kind of embrace the upcoming holiday if you celebrate it. But I think it's definitely one of those that we use it so commonly, and I think it becomes to the point I would even say it becomes almost too much of a natural habit that I kind of fall into of the showing the certain types, whether you want to call it a mask or not, and just I think the overall alliteration and those type of things that go along with it I think is really interesting. But that was our bonus mind map, and we'll be able to start the next month with a new weekly mind map to kind of tie into those. And like I said, if you had missed the previous weeks for this very specific theme to that, here they are here, and we can always come back to them. But thank you, everybody, for sharing. So now we're going to move to the Rosebud Thorn. This is going to be on page 50 in your October journal. And this is, again, more reflection, but the opportunity to see the wins, the things that you're looking forward to or things that could be emerging, as well as in the same frame and on the same page, looking at some of those maybe lesser things, the things that maybe didn't go as well. So the rose is going to be something that you did well, something that made you happy, that made you smile, those things. The bud is that emerging opportunity, something that you're looking forward to, something that is to come, or something that is there on the horizon that you haven't quite sorted out what it's going to be. And so it's more of like, are you going to take the proactive attitude or more of the reactive attitude? There is no kind of right or wrong way to approach those, but it is something to just be aware of. And then the thorn is going to be that challenge, something that didn't go so well, or something that is taking up too much effort, time, energy, mental strain, for your mind, body, soul, heart, all of those things. If you don't quite want to dive completely into the negative. But for me, my rose, like I said, I just got back from this amazing trip where I went to Switzerland and Italy. This particular photo is from St. Patrick's Well, which is in Orvieto. I was so excited to see this place. This is straight out of a book that I read. It's the only reason Orvieto ended up on my bucket list, my places to see. And I do love when reading takes you to literal places, as well as, the figurative. But this was a side, I called it my side quest that I was able to do. One, because I've traveled with this group before and they're wonderful, wonderful people. And they let me gallivant to this place. And I was thrilled and it was everything I wanted it to be, all the experience I was wanting it to be, and it was amazing. So it also makes me appreciate the magic of reading and how there are some places that you can go for those things and that they do exactly. It's Orvieto in Italy, which is like a 2 hour train ride kind of northwest of Rome. And so the emerging opportunity, the bud, obviously, Halloween is coming up, and my friends here in Edinburgh have decided that we're going to do a Halloween gathering, and it's going to happen at my house, which is yay, exciting. Um, I love hosting. It usually means I don't have to go anywhere, but at the same time, I think a lot of those decisions were done when I wasn't here. But looking forward to that. We've added some new people to the drama class, so hopefully they'll get to come and participate. But again, it's always a fun group. We tend to just hang out and play a bunch of kind of quiz games, charades, all of those things. So looking forward to it. And then the challenge, this is going to be like an absolute first world problem. But the dryers don't work as efficiently here. So it's just, I am renting. And so there's a lot of things that I can't control. It's just made 2 weeks of vacation is great, but 2 weeks of laundry not so great, and I am still going, and it just seems to be never ending. So that's how I'm going to be spending the rest of my weekend. But again, we're on page 50 in your October journal. We would love to celebrate those roses with you. If you want to share, you don't have to, but just being able to put them down on the pen to paper to see kind of, again, those roses, those highlights, something to look forward to. And sometimes what you look forward to is just the start of a new week, the start of the weekend. They don't have to be big, lofty things, as well as provide some of that extra support and thoughts when it comes to the challenges. So we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And as always, please continue to share your responses in the chat, even as we move to the next section or the next slides. This is certainly your time to kind of, like I said, put those things out into the universe to just maybe provide a little bit of relief or just a little bit of kind of satisfaction for those things. Because again, this is your time, however you want to spend it. But love seeing all of the roses, buds, and thorns. And I know I've said it before, but what I like about all of these very regular socials, especially on the weekly basis, is I feel like these rosebud thorns are just wonderful little glimpses of the type of week that you had. It's that wonderful weekly check-in, which I know to kind of dwell on the not so great things, but I do think it adds that kind of full picture to see that someone has experienced this high, someone is looking forward to something else, but then also experiencing some of those more thornier things. So thank you everybody for sharing. And as always, we love to provide that added cheer and enthusiasm for those, as well as acknowledge some of those lower, quieter, darker moments. But we are glad that you're here. So now we're going to move into those weekly setup pages, which if you are still in your October journal, that's going to be on page 52 and 53. But if you are already transitioning to the November journal, that's going to be on page 26 and 27. Because again, there's no right or wrong way to journal. There is no right or wrong way to participate in these things. So I always like to frame this section of asking yourself, what do you need? I know one of the daily rituals was about zooming out a little bit. I use that phrase all the time because sometimes we get a little into the weeds and into the details, and sometimes it can be very hard to see past the trees. So zooming out, I find always to be really helpful, as well as asking myself, what do I need this week? Because what you need this week may be exactly as written in the particular journal, or maybe what you need is completely repurposing everything. And maybe sometimes what you need is a break. That was me last week. I haven't used any of the weekly pages the last 2 weeks. So for me, it's definitely needing to get back into a little bit of a routine. So I'm going to stick a little bit more true to the kind of fundamental side of it. Probably won't do too many repurposing, even though I'm a big fan. But I just feel like that's a great way to frame this if you have a little bit, if you just get a little stuck. Whereas I do think a lot of us are creatures of habit, so the copy and paste can be very helpful and very effective. So starting with the top of page 52 in your October journal or 26 in your November journal, with this week I want to feel. I always like to take this opportunity to do some intentional optimistic manifestation. So I asked myself, how do I want to feel this time next week? As I am experiencing the roses, the buds, and the thorns of the week ahead, I like to have that kind of equilibrium point, that end goal, that kind of design where I said, this is what I planned to do, and how can we make adjustments to come back to that, since that was what I wanted to do with whatever the week has thrown to me. And sometimes what you want to feel, or the way you want to feel, is a specific word. Maybe it's multiple words. Maybe it is leaning into the theme of resilience, or even just the seasonality, the holidays, all of those. Maybe it's less of something, more of something. Maybe it is 1% better, 5% happier. I'm still on my hydration kick, 15% more hydrated. Maybe it's a specific definition, a specific iteration of a word. Maybe it's a doodle. I'm a big fan of pictures are worth 1,000 words. So it can be a sticker, a doodle, all of those things, whatever is going to kind of inspire you to help maybe add this kind of, center point, keystone, if you will, to what your week ahead is going to be. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to come up with that, as I'm already seeing in the chat. So if you want to share in the chat, how do you want to feel this time next week? We will see you soon. I love all the combination of productivity accomplished as well as the calming, the tranquil, the at ease, the where was the other one? The calm. I feel like that's quite a vibe, especially as we roll into the burr months, I feel like. So thank you for sharing. So now that we have framed it as how we want to feel, we can now move into those weekly major three goals and the to-dos. So the weekly major three goals for me are the mental and emotional reminders I want to give myself to feel the way I want to feel this time next week. And then I overlay the things that need to happen during the week with those to-dos. And so a lot of times people will use this as a category type thing where you break it down into mind, body, soul, mind, body, home, work, home, self, leaning into the alliterations, or maybe it's just again the three major things you need to do, the three highlights for those. Maybe you have goals that you want to reach each day. So you have an early goal, a midday goal, and an evening goal, which I think is a really good way to approach it. If you maybe you just need to kind of zoom in a little bit and focus on your day to day to day because you have a little bit of a busy week. Or even more of that alliteration with the Birog, fun, and fierce. Or taking it that next step because we do see a lot of folks kind of combine this section with the to-dos. And so their to-dos will support the specific goals that they have within their specific categories, or you'll see that theme of the bingo board. But also maybe with the zooming out, the top middle, they had one specific goal that they wanted to focus on. So sometimes that is what is most helpful. Or maybe again, just because it's three doesn't mean it's three. Maybe it's two, maybe it's one. Maybe it's just I need the weekly affirmations. I need some mantras. I need some affirmations to get me through, or even just the stickers. And then you've got the weekly to-dos. I really like this exchange between me and my brain. Didn't write this, but I love this because I appreciate the thought. But the to-dos are those things that you need to do. Maybe it's your traditional to-do list. Maybe it's a to-do list. Either way you approach it with the to-do or the to-do, everything needs to get to done. I have had to lean a little bit more into the Eisenhower matrix, which is that do, decide, delegate, or delete, which is just a reorganization tool when it comes to your specific to-do list. But at the same time, I've had to lean really heavily into the delegation, much to the mental gymnastics that I have to go through to do it because I always feel super, super guilty and all of those things. But I am getting better the more I delegate. But it's still, like I said, the guilt is real. And at the same time, I never delete anything. I just delay it. And same thing with if you've got a couple other tasks, maybe it's the Pomodoro technique. It is again highlighting that daylight savings time. That is certainly coming up for everybody. Same thing with I think there's like 7 Fridays till Christmas, which is wild and quite a scary statistic. But a lot of times it is just kind of reshuffling and reprioritizing your to-dos. So it is maybe putting them in a different category. Maybe it's breaking it down into the needs, the wants, and the hopes. Maybe it's looking at it from a don't do this to do this instead. Again, sometimes the stickers are the best way to do it because you just need to pivot your focus elsewhere. Same thing with the doodles or the to-be's. Sometimes it's looking at it from a work and a personal standpoint, again, into that need and want recategory as well as those wins. Or maybe again, simply not to do. So I'm going to give you some time to work on this. Let me know if I need to go back to different slides or different examples. But again, we're on page 52 in your October journal, page 26 in your November journal, working on that middle section with those major three goals and the to-do list. Always looking for advice to accomplish that to-do list and not carry things over from week to week. But I'm going to play some music and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And I appreciate the encouragement that we're basically going to have massive movie nights, which we'll definitely include in this next section for sure, if you hadn't already included it. But we're now going to move to that habit and activity section, which is at the bottom of page 52 if you're in your October journal, page 26 in your November journal. And these are, again, I said I'm a creature of habit. These are the things that I tie into my monthly habit tracker. And the monthly habit tracker, I see those as things that I want to do every single day. But when I carry them over into my weekly tracker, I add the lens of reality. And again, most of you can repeat. If you've been to my socials before, the three things that I want to do every single day, which is move, read, and journal. And so within that, I then include what's the actual realistic amount of time I can dedicate to that. And that's based on what other workload I have, what school load I have, what other activities and fun things I have scheduled. It becomes so when I move every day, do I have time for kind of a dedicated traditional workout in that sense? Do I just have the time to the like walk to commute to whatever errands I have to run or the to and the fro from whatever events or scheduled things I have to go to. But other ways that you can approach this is maybe these are habits and activities you want to stop. Maybe you want to set specific goals for these. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method is there as well. And then maybe it's here's where your kind of mental and emotional reminders are instead of the actual kind of to-dos or the specific activities. Maybe what you don't need is to actually track your habits this week. That was me last week when I was on vacation, wanted to be more present in that regard. So maybe it gets covered with a sticker. Or just because you have five things listed, maybe you just want to do one, two, or three things. Maybe your weekdays look different than your weekends and kind of that incorporation there. And then at the same time, I highly recommend the 5 days to schedule every month. I've kind of turned this into like a theme for each week. And so for me, this week is definitely the reset week. And that's just kind of cleaning, putting everything away, getting organized, coming back to the like large, large inbox that I've acquired since I've been gone, and just kind of moving into that realm because last week was really fun and I loved it. But those are the things that I need to do. And at the same time, I always like to add that particular iconography to these things. And as I've mentioned before, I repurpose my expense tracker now as an adventure and a bucket list. And I do not have any artistic skills when it comes to these. So these are kind of what I use as inspirations because I'll either kind of think of things that I'm already planning on doing. And so I'll write those there and kind of cross them on the list. Or I will specifically kind of add these things there. So for example, the take the scenic drive with good music. Ironically, I don't drive here, but we rented a car when we were in Switzerland, and so we got to do that. So that got added to the adventure and bucket list there. So like I said, I use this more as inspiration, but also at the same time, a lot of these things are things that we're already doing. So why not make them special? Why not give them their kind of spotlight moment? Because some of them can be mundane, but I also feel like it's a way to add that kind of romanticism or just kind of that fuller life of things that you're already doing. But let's make them a little bit special. Let's make them have a little bit more fun. And same thing, just with a little bit more excitement. So I would love to see in the chat if you want to share what habits are you currently working on or tracking? Are you leaning into the theme of the fall, or again, are you a creature of habit with the kind of copy and paste from the previous weeks because you're really trying to nail down some of those routines? So I am going to stop talking. We're again bottom of page 52 in October, bottom of page 26 in November, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So now we're going to turn over to the second page of these weekly setups, and that's going to be page 53 in your October journal and page 27 in your November journal. And I'm going to combine this whole page. And don't worry, I have a couple songs, so you'll have plenty of time to kind of close out on all these different sections and let me know if I need to go back to different slides. But this is the side that I always call the B side, because again, treat it like a record player. Where we just did the A side. So that's one that I listen to all the time, I use all the time. And then now we flipped it over to the B side, and I think some of these have some really good gems, but they're not necessarily page that I do all the time. But when it comes to the meal plan, you can use it absolutely as a meal plan in kind of the scheduling component, or you can do it as a real-time meal tracker if you're on a particular journey. Maybe this is where your to-dos live. Maybe it's leaning into ways to celebrate the theme. So one good thing, if you had a little bit of a tough time finding the roses or just need a little bit of optimism there, maybe it's the meal plan for the soul. So it is leaning into some of those prompts, the daily reflections, the daily rituals, or where you want to put the daily affirmations from the Silk and Sonder app, or kind of just lean into a little bit more of the creativity, the mental break that maybe you need with it comes to doodles or haikus, or some of the other things there. I absolutely love this section as a packer for travel. I use it to travel for when I do work trips, and I absolutely used it this trip to the point not only was I able to use the smaller bags that I wanted to do, but I ended up with like two leftover outfits, which was wild. But I appreciated the planning mechanism to it. Or maybe this is the kind of daily things that you want to close out. Maybe it is kind of the habit stacking if you kind of do some of those approaches, or maybe just a point to highlight. You can also then bring in the mind body health plan, which again is another one of those things that you can kind of schedule or plan for, or it's something that you track in real time for what you did for your mind, your body, or your health. And so you can lean into some of those alliterations. We love a good alliteration. And I also think that's a really powerful way to connect to the actions with your brain, because our brains do love alliterations. They get fixated on it. So leaning into the frustration free Fridays, seize the weekend Saturdays, self-care Sundays, tune out the noise Tuesdays, or Nathania and her regular shout out with the I feel and I need. I think this is such an effective mental check-in if you actually take the time to kind of do the power of pen to paper. And I think it is one of those that you can certainly start your day with, but it's something that I will even ask myself, especially if I start to feel a little stressed or a little frazzled. It's the what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? And then kind of sorting out, what do I need? Do I need a break? Do I need some water? Do I need to listen to some music? Do I need to do something? But I like that acknowledgement of what is going on, and then an actionable item to help you sort it out or address it, or maybe change it. Maybe this is again leaning into some of those self-care tips. The writing just is something as simple as three things you like about yourself today, three things that you did well today, or leaning into maybe your reading log, home cleaning or tidiness, or decluttering. Maybe it's the 7 types of rest. Again, iconography here. I highly recommend if you are on social media, if you haven't done a social media cleanse of that, I have completely changed what I see on my For You page, and it makes me so happy. Silk and Sonder provides such amazing things there. So if you're not following them on Instagram, I highly recommend it. But now every time I open up my For You page, I get the bucket list, the adventure list, and all the cute little doodles that I share with all of you. So it's certainly worth the time, energy, and effort, because it just makes me so happy. And same thing with these. I love the little ghosts, but also just some of the reminders that I think we always need, especially around these types of years. So I'll come back to these. And then at the same time, the shopping list can go hand in hand with those meal plans, or even in preparation for the holidays, dare we say, that we start kind of considering what those shopping plans are going to look like for November and December. I also use this section to go hand in hand when I'm working on my packing list. This will include everything from like books to adapters, charging cables, charging cords, headphones, all of the other accessories that I need to travel with. Or it can be a bingo board. If If you have a major milestone coming up, be it birthday, anniversary, or even just the holiday coming up, highly recommend turning that into a bingo board. Those are always really fun. I feel like now I got to make a Halloween bingo board that I can accomplish this week, a Halloween movie bingo board. But I agree, as much as I love the horror genre, I think I want a little less horror at the moment. Life is currently horror enough. Maybe it is leaning into the social check-ins, the to be's, the buy, the don't buy, the mini breaks, all of those things as well. Leaning into again a glimmer bingo. Maybe this is where your work from home wardrobe is, just so you don't get caught wearing the same sweatshirts over and over. I've had to lean into that as well. Or sometime again, it's simple as like, what am I watching, reading, listening? What is making me happy? So I am going to play some songs and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And then the very last section is the I am loving. These is just a shameless plug from my vacation because I loved not only going to see all the places, but the wonderful people that I meet along the way. I have traveled with this batch of folks a few times now, so it's now become definitely an annual thing. But they're super fun. I was really lucky, and it's another one of those of like I usually travel by myself, so it's a lot of scenery pics. So it's always fun when someone else wants to take your picture, even though I was like, I'm pretty sure I have the same smile on every single picture. So now I just joke when someone wants to take my picture. It's like, well, I know what I look like. But this is again just a fun way to wrap up all those pages. And as always, we would love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. If you want to share your pages, we would love to see them. Jen is also going to start including some of the different links in the chat from this. So if you miss a social or show up late or have to leave early, they are all recorded and you can catch up with them on the YouTube section. I also think we've included some of our spooky ones in the past because we had some Halloween setup ones that were really fun. So you can always do that. Bailey is again hosting for an in-person event if you're near Hendersonville, Tennessee, or the different areas there. Also, definitely check out that annual check-in. It's the feedback opportunity. We like to read and listen to everything that you have. Please take the survey. If you have any other questions or concerns, you can reach out to hello@silkandsonder.com. But we always appreciate the feedback in that. And then we still have our AI coach. We are releasing brand new products and brand new components for that. So if you have questions or concerns or other things, definitely reach out to concierge@silkandsonder.com for any of those questions. Jenny is amazing. And we're always looking to improve. And those are just ideas and functionality and what do you want, as well as the unique tailoring options to include vault options. So those are all there. Um, this is a copy of my playlist. I will include the link to the Spotify playlist in the chat. You can always catch up with those. I save all of my playlists, so if you ever need anything there, or again, some of the chaotic songs that I find, specifically the instrumental quartet mashups, they're there. They're amazing. I highly recommend them. And that again has reached the end. I am glad to be back amongst the crowd and getting back into my routines and all those things. But I love seeing each and every one of you. I love spending my time with each of you. And with that being said, I look forward to future events. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. I hope you have an amazing rest of your weekend. We are going to have an amazing week as we close out the theme of resilience and get ready to close out October, heading into November. But I hope to see you at a future event, and we will see you again soon. Bye.
We gather here for this special occasion. One night only and limited engagement. So stomp your feet and clap your hands for Skeleton Sam and his graveyard band. I was just a little